puppies, and welcome back to another episode of the Isle of Series. Tonight, for everybody in our comic book community, we are touching a little bit on comics. Yes, it's happening just a little, where we're going to be talking about Golden Age set of comics. But joining us tonight to talk a little bit about the Golden Age and a little bit about himself as well is Mike, Mr. Nighttiger. Woo woo!
Woo! What's up, boys and girls in comic book land, you junkies? How you doing, Rena? Thanks for having me tonight.
Thank you for joining us. I'm doing well. How about you?
As well as can be. Right. It's always a loaded question.
Yeah. Well, how you feeling for how the last couple weeks have been?
I'm pumped right now, but I'm healing. I'm recovering. It's a slow process.
Yeah.
I've been there before, so I know what to expect.
I feel you. I had 2 surgeries when I was little, so I know. Yeah.
But the truth is, I have 3 months off paid. My wife is my servant for real this time. So I mean, it's great. I sleep till noon, 2, 3 o'clock if I want to.
Hey, well, now that I know that, I'm gonna text you at like.
Honey, I hope you're not watching this.
It's like she could just hear you from
But she's great. I have to shout out to her. She's awesome, and she has been taking care of me. So love you.
we gotta get the love hearts. I know Sam especially loves spamming his green hearts. So we need some hearts. All right. So here we go. I'm going to ambush you.
Hit me with your best shot.
Fire away. I'm sorry.
Oh God, no.
Oh yeah, we got music in the background. Live music.
Okay, so kicking off, I want to ask you, when did you get into comics? When did you discover them? When did you first start collecting? And I guess more properly, when did it stick with you?
So those are 3 different questions, and they're 3 different areas of events in my life. I don't know. It's probably 8 or 9, and went to my cousin's house in Illinois, and they just said, "Here, you can have these," and they gave me a stack of Spider-Man comics. Ooh. Well, I've always been into drawing since that's the first memory I've ever had was drawing my scooter and showing my mom, and all proud that I could take something that I seen and put it on paper. So I saw these comics and it just exploded with colors. And I'm like, I want to learn how to draw this. And I just started cutting out all the Spider-Man figures out of all these comic books. And I would glue them in notebooks and just fill the pages. Oh. So I could just stare at all of these Spider-Man figures all at one time.
Right.
Because, I wasn't into reading yet really that much. I mean, fascinated with reading yet. I did read, but...
It's kind of like anybody who would just kind of stumble across one of the books is just Spider-Man Shrine. You're like, no, it's for drawing. It's just a Spider-Man collage.
That led to my mom would take us to the library almost every week. So I would go to the library and I had 3 things I would look for. Anything to do with comics, anything to do with wolves, and anything to do with dinosaurs. And I would bring all those books home and look at them, and I would try to draw the pictures by looking at them, and I would never trace anything. Just I wanted to look at it and be able to transfer it from my mind onto paper. So I didn't really start collecting. The next experience I had with comics was going to a doctor, and then they were on the table. And I'm like, so these things exist more than one area. So I was like, okay. So then I started getting fascinated with reading them. But it wasn't until I really got into drawing a lot at school that I don't know how I discovered John Byrne's run on Fantastic Four. Oh. And yeah, when I seen that, I was like, angels were singing in my head. Like, this is the most beautiful art I've ever seen. It's better than Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. And I just wanted to draw just like him. And I started copying any ideas and turning a twist into my own and drawing my own comics. And once I found out about him, then I'm like, I had to research further back, say, what about back? Because it's in the 70s or 80s. Okay, what about the comics before that? So then I discovered Jack Kirby, and I was even more blown away. And then I wanted to draw just like him. I wanted to copy how he drew.
Mm.
And I would just take Marvel characters and twist them into give them my own name, but they would be similar. Like you had the Human Torch, well, I had the Human Flame, which I turned into the Blue Flame. And you had Yellow Jacket, so I had Beehive.
Mm.
And then you had the Thing, so I had a rock guy called the Lummox.
Ooh.
And then after that, I said, I have to create my own. I can't keep taking others' ideas and just making copies of them. So then I created Nighttiger, Omen X, and a whole array of comic characters that were just mine.
Right.
And I think I've drawn about 50 comics of my own over the years.
And I mean, have you gotten any of them like published, or was it just kind of like for fun, you just kind of flushing out?
Yeah, it was more of a fun thing. I did start dabbling with getting paid for art. Whenever I did that, it felt like work, and I didn't like it anymore. So I did side projects for people, like paintings on motorcycle helmets and pictures for people of superheroes for their relatives' birthday gifts and stuff like that. But it always felt like work, and then I didn't like it because
Right.
I had to meet a deadline, and it had to be done. It wasn't something I was just doing for fun or leisure anymore. So I kind of stopped doing that and just pursued it only for a hobby.
Right.
And I did get published once. There is a comic book that's published by a group called Old Guys for Old Comic Books on Facebook, and they publish a comic called Yeet, and they publish a lot of people that are group members. You could send it in, and they'll publish it. So I did get published one cover in there, but other than that, not really. I actually have that cover right here, I think. And I actually have a nice print of this on my wall.
Oh wow.
So again, this is a copy. It's called Liberty League of America, so copy of Justice League. This is called Myth. He's kind of a copy of Thor. And then this is like a copy of Yellow Jackets, Beehive, Lummox, Blue Flame. And then we have Icicle, which is obviously a ripoff of Iceman. But
super fun.
you know what I liked about it? I could create my own universe. I could do whatever I want. I was like the god. And I could just do whatever I wanted. You know how it is. You wrote a book. Yeah, how fun it is to create your own universe and just do whatever you want with your characters. You can make them dance on hot coals if you want. You can do whatever you want.
Gray Man wants you to hold it up again.
Okay. Well, I did grab a bunch of art here.
Hey, the green against the red like that is super vibrant.
And this is Nighttiger's first issue cover.
Wow.
So I have two issues of Nighttiger. I built a whole history. You know how you do when you write?
Mm-hmm.
You build that history and your vision in your mind, and you have it all mapped out, and you don't forget about it. So
yeah,
this is a couple pages. This is from Omen X, just a page from one of his comics.
Wow.
I learned to do this and then scan it and then add the dialogue later on the computer.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah, when computers came into existence and I found out how to use them, it became more work because now I had to scan them, recolor them, put the dialogue in again, but it looked better. It looked more professional.
Dang.
So this is Omen X right here.
Whoa.
Completely original character. And I did a cool thing with the computer. I have a print. I took this and I blew it up 100%, then took the white and just put dots all around in the black. And then when I shrunk it back down, it looked like a star system in the background.
Wow.
This is Nighttiger's issue number 2 right here. That's Skyrocket, his main villain. He's kind of like an Iron Man. So Nighttiger is a legend, or that every 100 years they resurrect a new Nighttiger. The spirit of the last one or will choose the next one, and they have to be pure of heart, and they'll search the planet, and then they'll start calling them back to China whenever there's a need for the people to be protected.
Wow.
That's Liberty League. Cyberclaw. I keep wanting to say Cyberclaw. Keep saying it then.
Well, and just all the colors are so bright and so vibrant. My gosh.
That's what I love about comics. It's like candy. I look at the comics on my wall behind me and I'm like, I want to open them up and see how sweet they are inside.
Right.
Like when you look at a package of like Chuckles or something, you know what I'm talking about? They're so vibrant.
Oh my gosh. Well, and it's like, I don't know how any of you guys you guys won't open up your slabs. I'm sorry, but I
have cracked some.
Opening these things up, I wouldn't be able to resist it. I'm like, I want to read this at some point.
Rena, it's a daily struggle every time I look at them. And I just read my first digital comic last week, all the way through online, which was one of the ones that was slabbed.
Wow.
So I'm proud of myself. I've tried to read digital comics before, and the experience is just not the same.
Right.
It's not.
But yeah, I look at them every day, and I'm like, it's a struggle not to want to open them. And I have cracked all my other ones in the past, so I don't know. Maybe I'm making a turn in life, becoming older and wiser. I don't know, or maybe stupider. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, Scott!
I love
this
the
is
little
hilarious.
So here's another Nighttiger collage that I did.
Oh my gosh.
So I really stopped drawing when I got to become a truck driver because the time was a lot like I didn't have as much time anymore.
Mm.
I used to sit up till 2, 3 in the morning because a page like this can take 10 hours.
Oh my
Easily.
gosh.
I would, I don't doubt it for a second.
Now if I'm into creating videos, and just a 3-minute video can take 8 hours.
Right.
Yeah.
If you want to make it look really good.
Yeah.
Yep.
I tell you, that was a fun project doing the Mr. Mixoplix, whatever it's called.
It's Mr. Mixoplix. Whoops. What is that?
I have fun pretending I don't know how to say it.
I honestly don't know if I'm saying it right. All I remember is the old animated Supermans when he would try and get Superman to say his name, and every single time Clark would trick him into saying his name.
I'm of the school, if you say it any way that you want and it makes you feel good, that's the right way.
Right.
Yeah, these are some of my best work.
Wow. Dang. Just the colors on those are phenomenal. They are so bright.
And that's the thing, when you're creating this for fun, you get to be the creator, the writer, the drawer, the inker, the everything, which you're totally creator, and you can just do whatever you want. Look at this one.
Dang.
Yeah, I just got a vision in my head that I wanted to draw. I wanted to draw a sketch of a Nighttiger, and Lady Strange is his wife. She's 100 years old, but she can't leave the jungle. If she does, she'll turn to dust.
Oof.
So he comes from across America, and he's like two spirits. He has the Nighttiger spirit in him, her husband. So he struggles with the fact now he can't leave with her. He has to either stay there or find a way to bring her across that threshold without her aging 100 years.
We have a question from the chat. Jake would like to know what mediums you prefer to do your art with.
Cheap markers from like the dollar store. I bought the expensive ones, but they dry out a lot faster. Just to buy
beautiful.
To buy the $3 packs and then use them up. That's what I do.
That's my favorite so far.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's Lady Strange. And I took her name from a Def Leppard song, Lady Strange.
Oh my gosh.
And when I first met Carolyn, Lady Fantastic, I called her Lady Strange by accident all the time. This is the last one I got out. That's an Omanex.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
So he's from another planet. he's a prince, and his dad wants him to be king, but he wants to be an international or interplanetary police officer. So he refuses the crown. Well, he doesn't necessarily refuse it when he's being ordained as the king, or however you say it, throned, crowned. There's 2 races on the planet, and the other race, they're gargoyles that can turn into a plasma at will. But they end up pulling off a big crime, and they escape in stolen spaceship, and he goes after them, and they both crash land on Earth.
Oh,
And that's how his origin starts.
dang.
You gotta think all those details, you know.
Right.
You know it is. So that's all. I didn't pull out a whole lot of art. I didn't know how long we had to show it.
Hey, the show is about you. I mean,
That's right.
whatever. If we end up sidetracking talking about tacos, that's what happens. That's part of the fun.
Now I want to.
I'll tell you, well, since tacos, I hate Taco Bell. I don't go there. I have this thing that's, we all have quirks. I make vows. Like if something happens at a place, I never go back ever.
Right. We call it toxic hell.
Yes, we
Yes,
do.
we do.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna move.
Yep, we're gonna do fire facts.
All right, so hey guys, tonight I was turned into a tiger, probably for plot convenience, but you know, so let's get into BBA 99's fire facts. All right, so fact number 1 is that Mike is a great ice skater / rollerblader. I'm speaking. Hello, Mike. Hello.
I heard it. I heard you.
Okay, all right. Number 2, Mike started collecting comics at 14 years old, and his relationship with them started at 8 years old. Number 3, Mike published a book on poetry. Oh, that's super cool. I want to read it now. All right, and the last one, number 4, is the golden age of comics is comics that ran in the early 1950s. Now, if you don't mind, I need to go turn back into a human. Bye.
Yay. Tigers rule. Yeah, I didn't pull that book down. I should have.
I was gonna say, you didn't mention anything about the poetry when you were showing off all your stuff.
With one arm, I don't think I could pull it out here without my wife's help. Yeah, I got it. Well, I had some tragedy in my life as a teenager. Both my parents died when I was young.
Oh,
And I have 4 siblings that are younger than me. And at one point, I don't know, like 10 years ago, I found that writing poetry helped me to get rid of all that pain. And so I had this, actually it was in England visiting my brother and listening to some band, I forget who it was. And all of a sudden it just started pouring out. I just started writing, and it didn't stop for a couple of years.
Wow.
And I think I published 2 books actually. But since I got all the pain out, then that's left. I can't really write poetry like I used to,
Yeah.
which
Well,
it is what it is. It did what it had to do. It gave me the therapy I needed.
right. So I mean, it was a good thing and kind of like a sad thing at the same time, because it helped you, but then once it was done. You know, dang.
I did write a 25-page novelette that's going to be coming out in Lawrence's Pulp magazine this year. Oh, sure. Never mind. I didn't say
I think
that.
that's supposed to be. I've almost spilled the beans on that too.
He never told me it was a secret. But I did write a novel, almost half of it, and my hard drive, I dropped it and I couldn't recover it. I was devastated. I put so much work into it, like almost half a year of just writing.
Wow.
And I never got that drive back because of that. It was really good too. It was a sci-fi, teenager sci-fi. It was similar to kind of what you wrote. Instead of fantasy, it was sci-fi. Shooting for that crowd of like the Harry Potter age.
Dang, man. God, I could not deal with that if I spent so much time writing something and then it was just gone.
I took it down to Best Buy to see if they could recover it. They said, well, I think for $500, we might be able to. I'm like, forget it. So
Bro.
But now my artistic ability goes into the videos that I make, and I love making them. They're so fun to make.
Yeah. Okay, I did promise a little bit about Golden Age.
Okay.
So, how big is your comic collection now, and when did you start making it primarily Golden Age?
So I don't have an exact number. I'm guessing somewhere in the 12,000 range.
Oh,
But I've sold 3 major collections up till this one that I have now. So when I was younger, like 14, I started buying comics. And of course, back then you could buy them cheap. And we had mom and pop stores when I grew up in Milwaukee. And I had a lot of early Marvel books, but I was kind of a teenage heathen and got in trouble a lot. I had a lot of fines, and it came to a point where if I didn't pay them, I was going to jail. So I took all the comics and I sold them and paid all my fines off, and then started collecting again, and amassed probably another 10,000 in my mid-20s, I guess. And at that point, I'm like, oh, this is just too much for me. It's taking my life over, and I just bought everything I could. Anytime I saw something like boxes or full, I just bought everything. So I had massive comics. So I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's taking over my life. I sold them all. I'm like, I want to just live a normal life. I don't want to be a nerd, collect comics. That only lasted a couple of years, and the allure was back again. And then I said, oh, I started buying, and I didn't have I didn't have any rules. It was like I just bought whatever I could find. And at that time, I was working probably minimum wage. Wasn't making a lot of money. So I was buying boxes, like $20, $30 long boxes whenever I could find them. I got up to another 10,000 again, and I'm like, the same thing. I want to get rid of this. It's driving me insane. And I sold them all again. And I'm like, I'm not going to collect comics again. So after I married Milagros, I started just buying to read. And then around 2006, I said, it's in my blood. It's who I am. It's genetic. I'm a nerd. Just embrace it. But I started setting rules for myself. I said, this time, I'm not buying anything that's older or newer than 1989. I'm going to stop there where consistently the writing and the art in the industry was good. Anything you bought at that period, you could pick it up and have fun reading it. It was to the point because Image had ruined it for me at some point. When they formed Image, I was excited. I was on board. I was a fanboy. I was buying every single issue every month. But after a year, there was no progression in the writing. It was like just eye candy, and it wasn't the best art at all.
Right.
And I said, oh, the 90s, and I just stopped buying any new books. But I did start to collect again in 2006, and this is the collection I have today. And somewhere in that transition, I got hurt again at work, and my company, they put me on the road driving, and I started making triple what I was making. And I was like, okay, now all those Overstreet guides when I was a kid, where I looked in the middle section and they had those colorful pictures of Golden Age that I said I would never be able to have or afford. Now I have the means to be able to collect that stuff. And so that's when I started to look at avenues of where can I get this and that. And then the internet hit big. Then you had Facebook, and I was on all the Facebook groups, and everybody was showing all these comics. I'm like, I got to find that one. I got to find that one. I got to find that one. Where do I find this stuff? And there's like, what's eBay? Oh no, another addiction.
Oh.
And then now I've become an eBay troll. I troll eBay. I haven't now since the injury because I know I don't have any real money to spend yet. But otherwise, I would be checking eBay every 2 or 3 hours, new listings, until I got to where I saw this 3 hours ago, put it away. But that's helped. I would find deals. I would find Golden Age books for $25 from sellers who weren't comic book dealers, so they really didn't know what they had. It was just a comic book. And I'd be like, oh man, If I could just find all those deals, and yeah. So, anyways, so I started collecting Golden Age, and my fascination is with the early stuff. This is from 1937.
Wow.
I just bought this one, and because the fascination is this is when it all started. This is when the first comic books actually were produced, invented, created, and it was all reprints, of course, of newspaper reprints put in a comic book. But it's like to me, it's like holding the Bill of Rights or the Declaration of Independence. It's historical document.
Right.
And oh, it smells so good. So it has no original characters. That's how early it is. There was no original characters yet. Superman was still 2 years away.
Wow.
And I just picked that up for $30 at the flea market.
Dude.
So that's pretty cool. This is a Grail that I've been trying to get. It's actually the second appearance of this character, which is another early first superhero. It's the son of Professor Supermind.
Wow.
So this is from 1941. It's a beautiful. Look how beautiful. Like you said, how colorful.
I was gonna say for like especially if it is a little bit older, the colors have held on that well.
So you figure this is number 61 from 1941. So this, I think, started in 1937. Oh, I'm sorry, 1936, which was really the year that the comic book was created.
Ran from 1936 to like mid 1950s, right?
And this is 1940. These are really tough to find. The Magic comics that have Mandrake on the cover.
Wow.
There was only about 13 issues.
They are truly magical.
From like somewhere around number 3 to number 24, and then there was a few Blondie covers in between.
Wow.
And then after that, it was all Blondie for the rest of the run. So they're really hard to find, and they do have them on eBay, but people want a lot of money for them, like up to $200 or more. So shout out to Simon. Because of him, I was able to get my first timely superhero.
Wow.
All Winners number 2, 1941, 7th appearance of Captain America. And this guy here is the first Stan Lee created character, the Destroyer. And he created him when he was 14 years old.
Wow.
But this is a coverless copy. It's missing 2 outer wraps and an inner centerfold, but it's such a rare book. And to get it for the price he gave it to me, it's insane. I have not read this. I'm saving this for a special rainy day. I love rainy days.
Every day here.
Rainy days are the best for reading. This is from 1939. This, of course, I don't think yet that there's a... Oh, yeah, this has Bozo the Robot in it, which was the first robot cover. I think it was Smash Comics number 1. And I do have an issue that has him on the cover. Those are really expensive and hard to get. So this is, like I said, 1939. This is a rare comic. Now, I've got this cheap on eBay for $10. It's missing the centerfold. But when I did research on it, it said it's a very rare comic, and there's not a lot of known facts about it, but it's believed to be the first Charlton published comic book.
Wow.
Or no, I'm sorry, it's called the Lost Charlton comic book because it was published by Holyoke. It actually has the headquarter address of Charlton Comics inside the front cover. So they speculated around Christmas time that Charlton either shut down or they were overwhelmed, one of the two, and they sent this out to be published by Holyoke instead of through their own printers.
Wow.
It's pretty cool how you can find pretty much all these Golden Age are almost like one comic to themselves.
Right.
So if you think of the bronze and the silver, it's like an assembly line of comics being put out. Where because of the events of the Golden Age, each one of these individual Golden Age are almost like their own unique comic book. Because you had the war. So during the war, they had paper drives, and you wanted to show your patriotic spirit. So you would bring all your paper products out and let them recycle them. And there was a stigma. If you didn't do that, you were unpatriotic. If you didn't give up all your stuff. So a lot of comic books were destroyed that way.
Damn.
And then in the early 50s, you had the book burnings and the fear and the scare that went on around the country. And millions of comic books were just burned for no real good reason. So it makes that era, which has the most print run in the millions for every individual copy, to the lowest print run that are survived compared to now to the silver, the bronze, and modern. So this comic may have been printed in the millions, but now there may only be a couple hundred, maybe 1,000 actually left in existence.
Wow.
So it's sad when you learn that. Here's that Bozo cover. Before Bozo the Clown, you had Bozo the Robot. So then you had Lou Fine in here, and he did the Ray, which DC bought the rights to later on. But Lou Fine was one of the big artists of the Golden Age. And there was just there's so much to discover about this era. Sparkler Man. And then you got Nancy and Sluggo down there. So you'd have all these newspaper reprints, and then you had the one original feature, Blue Beetle.
Right.
I have one Golden Age Superman, Ross, in my collection. I forgot how I got it. And I got it for like $10 somewhere. And every time I see it on eBay, people are asking over $100 for it.
Wow. You just got that Superman staring at the back of your head behind you now.
Oh, yeah.
I see you over there.
We're working on a curtain, my wife and I, for that, a superhero curtain.
Oh,
We've been going to Walmart trying to find the material, but because of the COVID, all the superhero material is gone. I mean, why would you need that for a pandemic?
That's weird.
Unless they're just not getting the shipment in, maybe. I don't know.
That could be. Yeah.
But you got to have some Jack Kirby and Joe Simon. Bullseye. They actually did have their own publishing company at the end of the Golden Age. They were working for Prize Comics. And what happened was the printers were running out of stuff to print because comic book companies were going out of business. There was the stigma. If you were in the industry, you were shunned. So they were accepting anybody's new companies were being formed because they would just print anybody. Before it was like, well, you're such a small company, we don't want to take a chance on you. But since they were losing revenue, they were taking a chance on anybody. And Joe and Jack decided, well, let's jump in and start our own company then.
Right.
Which unfortunately didn't last because they got bulked into the fear, even though none of their comic books had anything really bad about them. They were real kid friendly.
Right.
But it didn't matter at the time. Anything a comic book was bad. So even if it was a kid comic book, it was bad.
Dang.
This is another rare one. This is Holyoke again. They had a story unpublished laying around of Captain Aereo, number 17. So they put it out under this one-shot title.
Wow.
And it's really, so I'm guessing the print one was really low. Very rare to find. I found another one because they did reissue it. This is from 1943, and they reissued it in 1945. But I AOK'd that one to Man Cave, so he has that in his collection. 1937, just the funnies, the newspaper reprints. But these are the stuff that I love. It's so early, and it's like I said, to me, it's like a historical document. Kirk, my boy, said too. I'm just reading this chat. I can't see the chats here, so it's cool what you're putting up. Another Smash Comics, and then we have Tip Top from 1939, which has Tarzan. So a lot of people don't know Tarzan was a very intelligent, educated man, and so in the original comic books, he flew planes, he shot machine guns, he killed people. He wasn't like you see him only on TV, like living in the jungle and just like knew only about the jungle. He was a worldly guy. He had education in England He was actually from royalty.
Right. Yes.
And people forget that when they watch a lot of the Tarzan cartoons and TV
I think
shows.
they actually touched on that in the new movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
But there is in one of these comics, he's flying a plane and he's using the machine gun and he kills the bad guys. I'm like, oh man, that is so cool. No one would think that Tarzan would do that. This is my prize comic, but I found this in a dollar bin. It's
Really?
not. This is a $400 comic book.
Dang.
Oh.
But I found it like 20 years ago in a dollar bin. There used to be a store that went out of business, and they had almost everything. The whole store was based on dollar bins. So they had like $100 bins, and then they had a few wall books and stuff. But he mostly put everything in the dollar bin. So I have a lot of keys from his store, like New Gods #1, Mr. Miracle #1 that I got for $1. And those books are in the hundreds and hundreds of dollars. Just I had to show a Captain Marvel.
Right.
I do have superhero, like popular superhero comics. But I shy away from that because that's what most people go for. So everyone's going for it. You know that you're not going to get it on an auction at a good price because everybody's fighting for those popular superheroes.
Right.
Here's another one shot from 1945.
Dang.
A really cool story too about this guy. He's like a imp and he jumps in your pocket unbeknownst to you, and anytime you wish for something it happens. And then when he seems things keep weird happening to you, then you start thinking, what's going on? Maybe I have an imp in my pocket or something. And you get rid of him and he jumps to the next guy. This is 1941 Big Shot Comics. The Face. Joel Doolin, got to show that. He did Planet Comics from Fiction House and Ranger Comics. Beautiful. He does some beautiful good girl art. A Fox comic from 1946. Merciless, The Sorceress, and then Red Robins is in here.
Dang.
See, it's about three years ago and later, you could actually still get Golden Age comics off eBay at reasonable prices.
Wow.
But since then, it's like there's been this explosion in the market with, you know how it is with the keys and all that. Well, when all these books get so high, the collectors move into a new area.
Yeah.
And they keep shifting and shifting to the areas where stuff is cheaper. And now they're into the golden age. Like, so anything like the LB Cole, it's mentioned that he does the cover, everybody wants it.
Right.
Or a Joel Doolin cover from Fiction House, everybody wants it. And so they start educating themselves. And the more they educate themselves, the more they start doing what I'm doing, looking for those obscure things. And slowly, those little areas start creeping up in price and getting harder to find the deals. 1942 Jack Binder cover with the Bullet Man. Shout out to Bob's Comics. He picked up a #1, which is beautiful. And it has like a metallic letterhead on his #1 issue. I forget what comic or what video that was. That was really cool to see. Air Fighters. So some of these, not all, but some are missing like the centerfold. So when they're missing a centerfold, that brings them down to a 0.5, and it makes it a little bit less desirable above the upper collectors. So then you can get this early stuff for really, really cheap. Like this one is missing a centerfold in it. Black Hood. I just bought an issue yesterday of Treasure Comics, and it has a big devil guy on it, but it's missing the centerfold, so I got it for $32. Otherwise, that book would be 120, 140.
It's insane how high some of these can go for. It's just insane.
But you buy a book like this, and then one day you come across the super, super beat up copy for real cheap, It has a centerfold in it.
Right.
And then what you do is you marry it. You open it up carefully, take out the staples, put the other centerfold in, and then slide the staples back in. And I'm doing that. I'm learning how to restore comics. It's another part of the collecting that is really fun to do. Because it's like anything else. Then you can go, I did that. You know, you have that satisfaction of, I did something that most people can't do.
Right.
Like pressing a comic, for instance. This is number 4, Headline Comics from 1943. Trying to complete the run to issue 22 is all Junior Rangers. It's all World War II. And then from, I think it's 20, I want to say 24, and then 24 to 28 or no 29 is Jack Kirby and Joe Simon Good Girl covers, which are really hard to find. And then after that, they do the covers, but they never do any more Good Girl covers after that. This is a key. I tried to get the guy down from 100. He wouldn't come down. This is the very first appearance of an atomic superhero ever in comic books.
Dang.
And his name is Atomic Man. And then the next issue, which I have, he's on the cover. And do you know who Brenda Starr is? She's a reporter from a newspaper comic strip. But who was it? There was a movie in the 80s by Brooke Shields. Brenda Starr movie, which is pretty good.
I feel like it's like a precursor to Lois Lane.
You know, I never researched who came out first. It probably could be pretty close.
Dang.
But this is a Canadian comic. So when I did research on this, is it this one? No, there's another issue. But you do research on your books. And I have another issue where it has no month on it. So it's considered a variant. And that's kind of rare in a Golden Age book.
Right.
These are printed in Canada. And that's a whole nother story in the Golden Age, Canadian Golden Age comics, because at first they just got licensing to reprint or basically do second prints of American comics. But for some reason in the war, there was some kind of ban, and no longer could they work with America, so they had to print their own, and they started creating their own stuff. And it's a big history there too. So I got a few left. I know we ran over, so we got another Joel Doolin Sheena cover, Jumbo Comics, and then Sheena started in a tabloid size comic. I think it was called Rags or Mags, in Europe. And then they brought it over to America, and when they reprinted, the first Jumbo Comics were like treasury sized, and they just reprinted the ones from Europe, and then they started doing original material.
Wow.
Those are hard to find. I think I've seen people show maybe once or twice the first couple issues that were like super huge. They're so rare. And then of course we got to show Planet Comics. This is the very first sci-fi comic book title in history. So yeah, thanks. I mean, thanks for the platform. I could talk like old girlfriends all night about comics. I have my buddies that I get on the phone with, and unless we stop ourselves, we'll go on for hours.
Right. Hey, you know what though? I mean, that's part of the fun of doing this show though, is because we get to talk about things, about you. First of all, I know that tons of people were loving the panels that you drew. And then, you have all of these rare Golden Age books that a lot of people don't see because everybody, waits for, New Comic Book Wednesday, and then they get the new ones. So it's kind of cool to see the new ones that you don't get in print anymore.
Don't get me started. I hate new comics. I just bought Batman number 92 and it was awful.
Oh, hey, but I think you said it earlier. The new comics are like for more eye candy on the front covers, and then that's probably why there's a lot of slabs for the new ones. Is because it's eye candy.
I think the thing when you grow up with a certain era, that's what you like. So if you grew up in the 90s after Image, that's what you expect the best comic to be. And so that's your comparison. So new comics to different collectors might be really cool. But I think once you really dabble back into the past and then you make the comparison, you're like, this stuff is really not good,
Right.
unfortunately. And back in the day, these people that did this stuff, they were trained. They went to school at 14, early ages. They were drawing. They were learning from the masters. They went to art school. They learned how to produce a panel, a layout, how the eye will move through the panel.
Right.
Stories that have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then you can add subplots here and there, make it compelling. Now, none of that really matters today. It's just about, can we get it out and make it sell? What's the fastest way we can do that?
Yeah. Which unfortunately is
hold on, Scott. Never.
Oh my gosh.
What's up, Matt?
Okay. I think before the war starts with the new Warrior comics, we're gonna move
Let me say one thing. Hey, to all my buddies out there, I can't see the chat. I know you're there. Love you guys and girls.
We have Scott 422, we have Matt, we have Comics on the Mind, we have Super S, we have Vinny, Metarog, we have a lot of people who have been in here tonight, Rob, Grayman. So thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you so much for being on the show tonight and for showing all of those covers and your panels. Dude, they were so pretty. I have to agree with you. My favorite was the one of her walking in the water. That one was really cool.
Lady Strange.
I'm gonna have to remember that. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to everyone who was watching the show. I know we ran a little bit over, so thank you guys for staying with us. Thank you so much, Mike. That was a lot of fun.
You're welcome. I had a lot of fun. I'm pumped now.
Right.
Now like Bob says, I got to go read a comic book.
And I think with that, I need to straighten up the tie, and we will see you all later.
Yeah.